bless you, family. I'm a changed man for life. Thank you for stopping in and checking out my channel. Thank you for stopping in and checking out this video. If you are not yet subscribed, please take this opportunity to do so. Smash that subscribe button, ring the notification bell so that you get notified when new content drops. How's everybody's Sunday evening going? Hope everybody's doing well. Hope you had a nice, relaxing day as we get ready to head into this work week. Let's get into this new video. So I'm sure you've seen the thumbnail and you see the question being posed there. And the question on the thumbnail is, do gang members retire? But I guess the more appropriate question should have been, and is, at what age do gang members retire? If at all, do gang members retire? And if so, at what age do they retire? And what made me think about this was a video I saw from another content creator that I follow. The channel is called The Streets Ain't Loyal, hosted by a man named Sonny. Shout out to Sonny from the Streets Ain't Loyal program. Streets Ain't Loyal show, I think, is the actual title of his channel. Somebody that I check out, pretty regularly. Somebody that I've communicated with through social media here and there. Somebody that has supported me in some fundraising efforts that I've done for my church in the past. So shout out to Sonny. If you're not familiar with this channel, go check it out. It's The Streets Ain't Loyal show, and his name is Sonny. Go check him out. Got some really good content. I'm sure he'd appreciate you all coming and checking out his channel. Give him a sub, give him a like on his videos. So let me look. I want to see the exact title of his video that I was checking out. And the title of this video that he did is called, "Did I Just Decide One Day to Stop Gangbanging?" So of course I saw that and that sounded interesting. So I went on and checked it out. And he details a little bit about his journey of letting go of that life, that lifestyle, and some of the struggles that he had and is having with that. I don't know how old Sonny is currently. I don't know how old he was when he made that choice that he was going to let that part of his life go, to be an active gang member. And when I ask this question, right, when I'm asking about at what age do gang members retire, or if gang members retire, I'm not talking about people that either in prison or on the streets made like a decision to adopt a different lifestyle, right? So like myself, I'll speak on myself. I was in prison. I was doing life. I had been in prison for 20 years already when I had what I like to call a spiritual awakening, and I became a Christian. I gave my life to the Lord. I accepted Jesus into my heart, and I became a Christian. At that point, I was no longer a gang member. I was no longer claiming the neighborhood I was from. I was no longer introducing myself by a nickname. I reached out to some people and let them know about the decision I had made. And I started living like that in prison. And that became me, right? So I changed my life. God changed my life, but I changed what I was about, right? And then there's people that, we all know make a choice to go a different route. They go to a different yard. And at that point, they so much don't make a decision to not be from their gang no more, but their gang's not going to accept them no more, right? Because of this choice that they've made. And I don't knock nobody for making that choice. If that's the choice you feel is right for you, then hey, as a Christian, it's not my place to judge. It's not my place to even care about that, right? And I don't. But that's just an example of another way that people leave gang life. But again, they're switching up their lifestyle, right? What I'm asking, and I want y'all to put it in the comments, your thoughts about this, your feelings about this, your opinions on this. Somebody that doesn't find God, somebody that doesn't, go to the other side, somebody that's still an active gang member, is there a point in their life where it's just time to let that go, right? Is there an age? At what age do we expect people to stop participating in gang activities? At what age do people stop claiming their neighborhood? Like, I'm gonna give an example, and I think I've talked about this in a previous video. When I was on a level 3. I was in Ironwood, and there were these two cats there, these two homies, older homies, that they were at least 60, maybe older, but I'm sure they were at least 60. And one night in the day room, these cats were hitting up on a laundry cart. They were hitting up their neighborhood. They were hitting up their nickname, and they were hitting up the gang they're from. And like I say, these cats were at least 60 years old, and they were still active with the business. Again, they were in prison, they were lifers, and that's what they were committed to. And they were, willing to get involved in violence, willing to, they were programming homies. And that's what you do when you're a programming homie, regardless of what age you're at, right? But when you're out here in the streets, and you're 60 years old, would you be actively gangbanging? Would you be hitting people up, asking them where they're from? And if they're from an enemy neighborhood, are you taking flight? Does all that stop in your 50s, 40s? Does it ever stop? There was a couple things I found interesting in Sonny's video where he talked about getting hit up and not quite at a point yet in his journey where he's comfortable saying he ain't from nowhere, right? He would still introduce himself as being from his neighborhood, if I understood right. And my apologies to you, Sonny, if I'm misquoting you. If you happen to see this video, I'm not intentionally misquoting you. That's just the way I understood what you were saying. So do people in that life, if somebody decides, okay, I'm gonna hang it up as far as, I'm not gonna be hitting up on walls, I'm not gonna be getting involved in no violence, I'm not gonna be trying to kill enemy gang members, I'm not gonna start no stuff. 9 times out of 10, men will say, if somebody starts with me, well, then I'm gonna handle my business. And I get that. I get that. Self-defense, you know what I mean? But do you get to a point as an individual, or do we as society get to a point where there's an expectation that, like, okay, you're a certain age now, it's time to let that go? Is there an expectation, maybe even for younger people, but now you have a family? Now you've got a child that you're responsible for. You may have a wife that you're responsible for. Do you at that point be like, okay, it's time to let this go? And do you just like let the homies know, hey, I'm done, I'm retiring? Do people do that? Is that even a thing? Or is the expectation that until you die of whatever, natural causes, disease, car accident, whatever it may be, that you still actively bang your hood? What would we think if we saw a 60-year-old man tagging on the wall, hitting up on the wall, hitting up their nickname in the neighborhood, like those homies in the joint that I mentioned, right? They were with a marker on a laundry cart hitting up. Now, had that been out here in the streets, would that be considered like, oh, homeboy's, he's an OG and he's doing this thing? Or would we be like, that's an immature cat that needs to grow up and let that go? I go back to the point that Sonny made in his video that, I understand it's a journey. I get that, because I went through it. I went through a journey myself when I transitioned from being a gang member to being a Christian. I remember what that transition was like for me. I remember the first time that I introduced myself by my birth name and not by my nickname in my neighborhood. I remember that a cat came up the steps. I was in a level 2 prison at this time. and I was in the cube upstairs. And I remember in my bunk was like when I sat on my bunk and looked out towards the day room, the stairs were right there. So if someone came up the stairs and I looked that direction, we're going to be making eye contact. Can't help it. That's just the way my bunk and the stairs were situated. So there was this cat coming up the stairs. So of course I hear noise on the stairs. I'm gonna look and see what's up. We made eye contact, and it was clear he was coming to talk to me, right? So I stood up and I went and I stuck my hand out and and I introduced myself by my name. And he was like, "Oh, Spencer, I'm looking for the homie from such and such." And he said the neighborhood I used to be from. And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's me, but I'm a Christian now. I don't go by that no more." And he was like, "Oh, Spencer, my bad." I was like, "No, don't trip. What's up?" And, "Oh, I just was gonna ask about your homie so and so, I know your homeboy and blah, blah, blah." So we had a cool little conversation real quick. And when we finished talking, he went back down the stairs. I went back to my bunk, and the dude in the bunk next to me in the cube, African American brother, cool dude. Shout out to Medley. He was like, "How did that feel?" And I was like, "What you talking about?" And he said, "Introducing yourself by your name and not by your nickname." Because he was right there, and knew about my transition. And he had seen me when I first got there to the level two, and I was still, functioning as a homie and introducing myself by my nickname in my neighborhood. So he knew that this was something new, right? So he was like, "How did that feel?" It's like it was a trip, it felt weird. It felt kind of odd because I wasn't used to that yet. That was the first time that I had not introduced myself by my nickname in my neighborhood. And it was very liberating. It solidified in my mind my change that I was making, that I had made. And it was a step on the journey, right? So I understand what Sonny's talking about when he's talking about that he's not at a point yet in his journey where he's not ready to say that he's from not from anywhere. If he gets hit up, that it would be hard for him to respond, "Oh, I ain't from nowhere." And even myself, I've been home for 11 years now, almost 11 years. June will be 11 years that I've been home after doing 24 years. And in that time, I've been hit up. I've been recognized and like, "Hey, ain't you so and so from such and such?" And I even got that in prison one time. You know what I mean? And if you've watched any of my videos before, you'll see that I talk about when I made my change, when I became a Christian, when I got saved, that at any time somebody that I knew from a previous prison I had been at, if they drove up right there and I saw them, I would right away go pull them to the side and let them know, that I don't go by that nickname no more. I'm a Christian. I'm going by my birth name, and I would tell them that the reason why I'm telling you this is I'm giving you the opportunity to decide, do you still want to mess with me or not? If you still want to be a friend and associate with me as this new person that I am, cool. And if not, if you don't want nothing to do with me because of this change, hey, I understand that too, and that's cool. So I would let people know right away. And there was a time where I was walking the yard and I heard somebody calling my nickname, but I didn't answer, right? And I hear them calling my nickname, and I'm not answering. And at the corner of my eye, I see the person coming towards me. So when he got a little bit closer, I turned to get a good look at him, and it was someone I recognized. And he's like, "Hey, ain't you whoop de whoop?" And I kind of laughed, and I was like, "I used to be." And I was like, "What's up, Angel?" His name was Angel. He was a Asian dude that I had been with in New Folsom on level 4. So he knew me, when I was with all the other stuff. And so he was like, "What? Oh, yeah, I'm a Christian now, bro. I don't." And he was like, "Hey, that's cool, man. Congratulations." And that was the reaction I got from most people, right? I never got a bad, at least not to my face. I didn't get a bad reaction when nobody, "Well, F you," or, you know what I mean? Everybody was like, "Oh, that's cool. I'm happy for you. I hope that works out for you," whatever. Um, Out here in the streets, I've been hit up, and like what Sonny's saying, I ain't never said, "Oh, I ain't from nowhere." I've said, "I don't bang, I'm a Christian." You know what I mean? I don't bang, I'm a Christian. I've never just flat out said, "Oh, I ain't from nowhere." And when I've had people ask me, "Hey, ain't you so and so from such and such?" And I'll say the same thing like a total boy on the yard that day. I used to be, and they make that same kind of confused look like, huh? And then I say the same thing, I'm a Christian, I don't back. And they're like, oh, okay. But I've never just come flat out and said I ain't from nowhere. And I don't think that's been intentional on my part, but I understand what Sonny's talking about, right? How that would be kind of difficult to do because you would feel like you're betraying your history. You would feel like you're betraying yourself. Like you're betraying your homies. I didn't feel that way when I became a Christian. I didn't feel like I was betraying my homies or anything like that. It was a move that I knew was in my best interest, just for my life and for the life of my family and for my chances to ever come home off a life sentence. And I knew that God was calling me. I truly felt that. I truly felt that God was calling me to Him. And I made that decision and I made that move. But now, again, back to out here. Is it like what I'm wondering, because I didn't experience it like this. I experienced leaving gang life a whole different way. So I'm wondering, like, at my age now, I'm 56. Had I not become a Christian and had I come home, let's just assume that I still would have made it out from my life sentence. So I make it out and I'm 56 years old. Would I be introducing myself by my nickname? Would I still be hanging out with the homies in the neighborhood? Would I be looking for the action? Would I be looking for the smoke, as they say? I would hope not. You know what I mean? And I hope that's not disrespectful to nobody that is around my age and still is out there looking for the smoke. But like, I'm a grandfather. You know what I mean? Come on. I'm gonna be out there in the streets like that. And I get it that some older cats, they roll through, they hang out, whatever it may be. But is that the norm? Is that what, as a society, is that what we expect? In our culture, is that what we expect? In gang life, is that the expectation? Do the young homies from whatever neighborhood you may be from, do they expect you to be putting in work, to be in the hood, to be doing the stuff they're doing as active gang members at 45 years old, 50 years old, 55 years old, 60 years old? I would hope not. I would hope, to me, it's like, and this is very hypocritical because I became a father at 17 years old. I caught my murder case and I went to prison with a life sentence at 21 years old. But what I was going to say was that I would hope that when someone becomes responsible for a child, that they would give that life up, right? But clearly I didn't at 17. I wasn't ready to. I wasn't ready to be a father at 17 either, but that's the reality of what it was. But if someone is an active gang member in their 20s into their 30s and they have a family, is that the point where it's like, okay, let me hang them up? And if so, what does hanging them up entail? Does that mean, like, if somebody jams you up, you say, I ain't from nowhere? Do you say, oh, I don't bang no more, I'm a family man? What's the appropriate protocol? I'm just really wondering because Sonny really got me thinking. And I wonder about, older cats that, do they just retire? Do they just one day be like, okay, is there a retirement plan for gang members? Do you just one day say, okay, I'm done? And then what changes do you make from there, or how do you affect that change in your life? I don't know. I'm really tripping on it, wondering. Sonny's video really got me thinking. So y'all hit me in the comments. Let me know, like, do gang members retire, or are you out there looking for the smoke until you die, until you're 80 years old, or what is it? You know what I mean? Y'all let me know. Get in the comments. Let me know what you think. Again, shout out to Sonny for inspiring this video, for inspiring these thoughts that I wanted to bring to my subscribers and my viewers. Y'all let me know. And I'm gonna put the link too to Sonny's video so y'all can go check it out. I'm gonna drop the link down there in the description so you can go check Sonny's video out. And like I said, if you're not subscribed to his channel, give him a sub, check him out. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up on that note. Thank you guys for tapping in. If you are not subscribed to my channel, please take this opportunity and subscribe, like this video, check out some of my other videos. I appreciate you all. I'm a changed man for life. Jesus loves you and so do I. God bless you. I'm out.